Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a brand new and beautiful day. It's a gorgeous, lovely winter, very cold day here in the Enchanted Forest. And I'm looking forward to gathering with all of you. For those of you that are out there listening, the chat room is open. And come on in. Let's talk about common sense this morning. Oh my goodness, spiritual common sense. A subject matter that's kind of been at the forefront of my brain and of my thoughts for some time now. And I thought, well, we could talk about it, have a discussion about it, spiritual common sense. So come on in. I'm just posting here to let everybody know that the chat room is open. Okay. Very good. So this morning, wherever you happen to be, perhaps you've not had a moment to, tell yourself good morning. To wake up and say, oh, it is a new day, and thank you for this brand new day. It's always a good way to start the day with a deep breath and thank you for this day and all the blessings contained within it, including that of my physical body. And for common sense. It makes me chuckle when I think about the subject matter, spiritual common sense, because I've said for quite some time that, in life and in spirituality, sometimes a cow is just a cow. And in our humanness, or sometimes on the path of spirituality, we can extrapolate circumstances and things in our lives into being something that is far flung or far afield of common sense or how we would normally think. Oh, good morning, Charlotte. Hey, Tracy. Hey, Rob. Angie. Hey, cousin. It's good to have you in the chat room. You got a box coming your way, by the way, Donna. Hopefully it'll be there by Saturday or maybe Monday. FYI. So, common sense. Being grounded. Growing up, sometimes my dad would say, they ain't got a lick of sense at all. Ain't got a lick of sense at all. And what did he mean by that? Common sense, common courtesy, staying grounded, especially on the spiritual path. Sometimes we can find ourselves floating out there so far that common sense and being grounded eludes us or eludes some at some point. So being grounded, having an earthly passion is also a very good thing on the spiritual path, because I think the basis for me of spiritual common sense or the spirit of common sense is to remember that we all came here to have a human experience. So we're going to be human. We're going to be human in our frailties, in our mix-ups, in our laughter, our sense of humor, in our individuality, but also in our commonality, because we came here to have a human experience. Years ago, I love to share this story. Years ago, I was up at Arval Looking Horse's place on the Cheyenne River Reservation, and we were there for a Sundance, and one of the elders got up to speak, and he was talking about the point in his life when he got sober. And when he got sober in his life, he said he really got sober. I mean, he got sober in every aspect of his life, and his friends were saying to him, what happened to your sense of humor? What happened to your sense of adventure? Why did that have to get sober too? Why did you have to become so holy? What are you, a holy man now? And he said at that point, an elderly Dakota man got up and walked over to him and said, I'm glad that you got sober, that you're not using drugs anymore. But you don't have to get sober from all of life. If you wanted to stay so holy or be so holy, you should have stayed in spirit. Do you know how many people in spirit wish they could have a human life? They wish they could be here at this time. So don't waste yourself being so holy and so sober that you forget to be human, because this is a wonderful experience that Wakantanka and Tunkashilas give us, is this opportunity to also be human. Don't be so holy. And when he was talking about that, everybody around the arbor, the Sundance Arbor, we started chuckling because we can all remember those times when we started out on the spiritual path, or those times when we were little. I remember as a kid I wanted to be a nun. Boy, there's something. And that, I probably have done in many lifetimes, but those moments in our lives when we can get so sober, or we can get so holy and so out there, we forget, crap, I came here to be human. And the art and science of being human is not exact. It's messy, right? It can be messy. It can be tumultuous. It can be arduous. But it can also be the most joyful, beautiful, hilarious adventure that our soul can take if we remember to look at it in that sense. Hey, Del. He hane washte. You don't go that far down the path of excess and come out on the other end in perfect balance. That's right. And Tracy's saying, Amen. I'm messy and I embrace the growth. Yeah. Hey, Nellie. It's good to have you in the chat room, Nellie. Rob is saying if they were half as smart as they thought they were, they'd be smart enough to realize that they're dumber than hell. My grandfather. Yeah. And so this whole idea of having a spiritual practice or a spiritual life and walking a human existence, whew, Lordy, it can mess us up sometimes, doesn't it? And I do believe that sometimes with age we can look back and say, oh my God, why was I so serious about that? Or why was I so holy about that? Why did I take myself so seriously about that? I think one of the greatest gifts that actually, I can say this, my biological family down in Hawkinsville, Georgia, and my Hunka family out west in the Dakotas, one of the greatest gifts that they give me is their sense of humor. I remember the first time meeting my family in Georgia, and at one point Todd looked at me and he said, I think these are the funniest people I've ever met in my life, because the laughter and the hilarity is only breached every so often by, really serious, deep conversation, but there's a lot of laughter and a lot of joy in the laughter, and joy and laughter in the storytelling about family events, and laughter and tears, and sadness and laughter in the telling of stories and family history and personal anecdotes. Laughter is everywhere at family reunion time in Georgia. And the same thing is true when I'm out west with my sisters in the Dakotas. We laugh. Not only do we laugh in Barbara's kitchen, we've laughed in Del Marie's kitchen. We laugh inside the sweat lodges. We laugh at ceremonies or during, appropriately, usually, unless Barbara's there. Laughter. And laughter is one of the best medicines that we can possibly have for our body, mind, spirit, and emotions, is this wonderful laughter, being able to laugh at ourselves. And I remember a long, long time ago, one of the elders, I think it was one of my Hunka sisters, Margie Bird, we were inside a inipi, and she said, laughter helps us get through the hard times. Laughter reminds us that we're here being human. The spirit of common sense, I believe, includes the ability to laugh at ourselves, to laugh at our situations, and to not take things so seriously. I mean, there are times to be serious, of course, I'm not saying that. Let me have a little look-see here. There's nowhere to hide from Nellie. Yeah. So, how do y'all feel about that? Years ago, I was teaching a class, And there was a woman who had recently moved here from Germany, and she came into my class, and I enjoy humor. I do have kind of a dry sense of humor, a little odd sense of humor, and when I'm teaching, oftentimes the humor part and piece comes up because it's part of who I am. And I remember she looked at me right in the middle of class and she said, "You're not taking the subject matter and you're not taking things seriously enough. What kind of a teacher are you that you're laughing in the middle of this spiritual class?" And she stormed out of the classroom, never to be seen until years later when I met up with her at a metaphysical store up north, and she looked at me and she said, "Do you remember me?" Well, frankly, I didn't remember her. She reintroduced herself and she explained to me that she was the woman that stormed out of my class because I was laughing and having joy in the middle of a serious subject matter. I wasn't laughing at the subject matter, but sometimes teaching with a sense of humor helps people to learn more easily when it's not so intellectually bogged down, right? Anecdotes with humor, for me anyway, are also a great way for me to learn. And she looked at me and she said, "In my family and in my community, sense of humor was never welcome. Part of the reason that I moved to the United States. And I have since learned of the importance of humor. And I've also learned that it's okay to let go and laugh and not be so serious. And I've been wanting to apologize to you for a lot of years for the way that I stormed out of your class and I was so serious. And I thought you were a terrible teacher because you used humor to teach." And we laughed about that. We laughed about that. The spirit of common sense that it says that people are going to be people. The spirit of common sense that it says that everybody has a story and a way of looking at things, and a way of looking at things usually based upon their story, upon the adventure that this human life has had for them. And then there's the common sense of, when is a cow just a cow? What do I mean by that? Not everything in the universe needs to be, or is, I believe anyway, a profound sign. Sometimes it is what it is. That's what my daughter always says. "It's okay, Mom, it is what it is. Whatever. It is what it is." And sometimes that's true. It is what it is. People can burn their brain cells looking for a reason, right? An esoteric, occult reason for every happening in their lives. Sometimes in life, the spirit of common sense says life just happens. Not every illness that our body endures has some esoteric, deep, dark, occult meaning. Every illness that our body has does not mean that we did something wrong and our body is punishing us. That's a big one for people, isn't it? The spirit of common sense, for me, means we have this human body, and sometimes, just like with any vehicle or any machine, stuff goes wrong. Stuff breaks down. And I've seen people, particularly in spiritual circles, punish themselves or punish one another, trying to figure out what it is in their life that happened, what sinister thing has taken place that's given them, I don't know, hemorrhoids. I don't know. What is that? Why does hemorrhoids, why does any of that have to have a sinister spiritual root? Maybe you just have hemorrhoids. Nikki's laughing. Well, it's the truth. Oh, Lordy. Why is that? Oh, well, she must have done something wrong in her life. Right? I wonder what's in her closet, right, that has resulted in this dreadful case of fill in the blank. Well, we all know that illness over time can build up because of unresolved, emotions or what have you. I'm not negating that. Or if we abuse our bodies, common sense says we're going to have some problems. But not everything can be whittled down to or boiled down to, oh my goodness, right? That case of gout that he has is because he's just not walking forward in his life. He's stuck. No, maybe he just has gout. Maybe he has a bunion, not because he's afraid to walk forward in his life. Maybe he has a bunion or she has a bunion because she's been wearing really uncomfortable high heels for a lot of years. Or, maybe that's just the way that I look at it. I don't know. How do you all look at it? You're being punished for a lack of fiber. Right, and being punished for having to push Elise out. Oh my Lord. Push, right? Hoo, push. Well, you gave birth to more than a little girl, I'm sorry to tell you, Denise. You gave birth to a whopping hemorrhoid at the same time. And, I have been known to call her my little hemorrhoid because, that's when it happened. I wasn't being punished in childbirth. That's sometimes what happens. Heck, the Sarge had him. That's where I learned about him. Oof, well, that's a whole other subject. That probably was a lack of fiber. Del Marie is saying, it's good to laugh at ourselves, especially in the morning. Bedheads start your day off right. Exactly. Oh my goodness, sometimes in the kitchen at Barbara's, we all look like a hot mess. And that's usually where the humor begins. When Barbara's sitting on the freezer chest, and Del Marie and I are doing dishes and cooking and all of that, and Barbara's, out on her pontifical chair, top of the chest freezer, and we just laugh at one another in a good way. And there's a lot of healing. Some of the best times we spend with people, we can look back and say, it felt really good to be with them because we laughed. I could be myself. I could laugh. Generally, a lot of times we really like people because they have a sense of humor. I really like that person. They really have a great sense of humor. Knowing when to be serious about life and when to have a little bit of humor sometimes is an art. Some people haven't, mastered the art of sometimes you do need to be serious. Not everything is funny, right? Hey, Nikki. Hi, Tara. Tracy is funny. Yes, Tracy is funny. Rob is saying, maybe my shoulder hurts because of a drunken wrestling match at the rugby club when I was 24. Yep, I'd say so, Rob. Hey, Katie Battle. Donna is saying, for me, it releases pent-up tension. Yeah. Have you ever laughed and cried all at the same time? Yep. I think that's the reason that when we're at funerals and we are giving eulogies, some of the most wonderful eulogies are the ones that involve laughing. That laughter breaks up the sorrow, the grief, even for a moment. The laughter. And sometimes things happen to us in life not because we're a bad person. I'm going to repeat that. Sometimes things happen in our lives not because we are a bad person. Just like all illnesses are not some skeleton in the closet that's come a visiting. Right? No. Not every uncomfortable, tumultuous thing in our life that happens to us is the result of some dreadful thing that we did in the 12th century as a Knights Templar. Or, you see what I'm saying? Sometimes Just like bunions, hemorrhoids, and other maladies of the physical body happen because physical bodies are not perfect for very long, if ever. Sometimes the circumstances in our lives are circumstances in our lives. Yes, we can have circumstances that happen that are not pleasant based on choices that we've made, right? We've all gone looking for love in all the wrong places, and that never turns out very well. You see what I'm saying? But on the other hand, sometimes shit just happens. It's not always a conspiracy by the infinite intelligence of the universe, or Beelzebub and Beelzebub's minions, that we go through things in our lives. Sometimes we just find ourselves in situations. Sometimes I believe we have signed up for some tough situations. Why would we even do that, right? Well, the brightest lights are always called to the darkest places. I do believe that. The brightest lights are often the ones called into the darkest of places. And so how do you perceive the darkness? How do you perceive those situations? Are they done to you? Are they done for you? Are they opportunities to hone your mettle? Are they opportunities to reveal your strength? Or are they just crappy situations that we sometimes find ourselves in? I think it can be all of the above. In all of my years in the realm of metaphysics and spirituality, it never ceases to amaze me how people will blame and shame themselves or others for a circumstance that they're finding themselves in. Well, they must have done something really bad. Or I heard. I bet you in another lifetime they were. Well, they pretend to be such goody two-shoes, but I betcha. One of the greatest spirit of common sense teachings of all time, I believe, at least for myself, is stay in your own lane. Just stay in your own lane. Don't be veering off into other people's lanes unless they invite you over to that lane. Right? No remote viewing into what you think is going on in their lives, that something crappy has befallen them. Just stay in your own lane. You do you. Send some love. Visualize them in love as they're going through their stuff. And some people bring stuff on themselves. I've done that. That really comes with youth, and I wonder if I do that, what the reaction of that will be. If I do that, I wonder what's going to happen down the road. Oh, nothing's going to happen down the road. I'm smarter than that. Spiritual common sense also says that you're not as smart usually as we think we are. We don't get a pass like we sometimes think we're going to get when we're younger, right? Oh, goodness. But to see it all with humor is most essential. Yeah. Darkness and the like are tools to help us move forward if we choose. Absolutely. I agree, Charlotte. I believe that our body's symptoms are a most divine tool to guide us and help us see what we are not seeing. Yep. Rob Coulter is saying, laughing at funerals is a family tradition. I love that tradition. Yep, we have to listen to our bodies. You are right about that. You are so right about that, Charlotte. We have to pay attention to our bodies. If we don't spend some time reflecting or listening to what our body is telling us, wow, it can really build up and wham, it gets us. We have to pay attention. I couldn't agree more with that. Hey, Meg. Okay, Angie. My brother Nick lost his job last year after several months unemployed. He started substitute teaching. He loves it. And he tells me how much the kids really love him and his sense of humor. Oh my goodness, Angie, can you imagine having your brother Nick for a teacher? Wow, I would have thought I won the lottery if I had Nick Malek as one of my teachers. Isn't that great? Yeah, common sense, spirit of common sense says everything changes. Nothing stays the same. That's common sense and spiritual common sense. I don't think we're meant to be static. Change happens. Change is a constant thing. Yeah. And our bodies are these great, wonderful instruments that tell us, oh, something's going wrong right there. Pay attention, right? Danger, Will Robinson, danger, Will Robinson. Pay attention. But what about, I guess what I'm thinking, now that you bring that up, Charlotte, when a child is born with a malady, it reminds me of my dear friend Ortrune Franklin, who was born with scoliosis and just tremendous back problems. And for years she punished herself, thinking, what did I do wrong? Why can't I heal this? And sadly, people in the realm of metaphysics that she was in would say, well, you ought to be able to heal that. We can heal anything. If you think about it, if you focus on it, you can take care of that back problem that you have. You can fix scoliosis, right? You can just fix that cleft palate that baby was born with. You can just fix if you think about it or pray about it or, do this, that, and the other thing long enough. What about children that are born with maladies? Is that some ecclesiastical punishment? Or is that a child that was born with a malady of the physical body? Or what about children that are born with maladies of the mental, emotional bodies? Is that some punishment right? What is that? To me, and it's just me, it's the imperfection of being human. And sometimes with those maladies, depending on the person, those maladies can also become their passion, their reference for teaching others. I think we all have maladies, if we're really being honest. We all have imperfections in our humanness, in our body, mind, spirit, emotions, or any combination of the above. As we get older, should we be learning to pay attention to the signs and symbols of, geez, maybe you need to pay attention to that? Yep. Is it always a punishment for not being a good enough healer? For not being spiritually wise enough? No, I don't believe so anyway. Louise Hay, is she maybe a great indicator of what could possibly be going wrong on the spiritual? Well, yeah. Has anyone seen the Dalai Lama when he wasn't smiling? No, oh, that little sweetheart Dalai Lama. He just doesn't take life too doggone well, because I think what I'm getting to is that this life that we've been given is really short. It's short. Blink of an eye in the span of time and in the time continuum. Having a sense of humor and realizing the impermanence of all of this. It is the teaching that the Buddha teaches about the impermanence of life, that one day, we will all go back. It's about the sand castles that we build on the beach. I love that teaching from the Dhammapada. About all of the children, that one day all the children go to the beach and they all begin to build sand castles of every sort and every type. Tall ones, wide ones, big ones, small ones. And all the children on the beach are building their sand castles. Some of them are having joy while they're building their sand castles. Other of them are very serious in their endeavor to build their sand castles. And all of these beautiful sand castles crop up along the beach, says the Buddha. And all the while, the tide of the ocean approaches the beach. And eventually the tide reaches the beach and it begins to wash away all of the sand castles that were built. The tall ones, the wide ones, the big ones, the small ones, those that were built with laughter, those that were built with humor, those that were built with seriousness. And eventually the tide washed them all away. And the children that were there building those sand castles, they picked up their buckets and they put their shovels in their pails and they all went home. Until it was time for them to come back another day. And I've never forgotten, obviously, that teaching from the Dhammapada, because we're like those children with our buckets and our shovels, and we come here to earth and we begin to build. And we can either build with humor and humor with some seriousness, or humor with adventure and seriousness, however it is that we build. But eventually the tide of life and the tide of what we call death, physical death, it shows up on the shores. And all that we've built is washed away. And just like the children, at that point when it's all washed away and we're consumed back into the ocean, the vastness of all life, we take our bucket and we take our shovel and we go home to Creator until it's time for us to come back and play. And I love the word play and how it's used in the teaching. One morning the children got up and they gathered their buckets and they gathered their shovels and they went to the beach to play and to build. Nellie is saying, when a child is born with difficulties of any kind, we need to ask the question, who is the lesson really for? Is it the child or is it ours? Bingo. Bingo. A classic example of that is my grandson, Easton, born at 1 pound, 12 ounces. And within the next month, his mother, my daughter, will begin her career as a neonatal intensive care unit nurse in the very same place that took care of him a year and a half ago. And when she was interviewing for one of these positions, they only offer 12 every year. And there are hundreds of applicants, and they actually pursued her for this. They asked her, why did you choose the NICU? Why would you want to be a NICU nurse right out of nursing school? And she said, my greatest teacher, the one who came here to prepare me for my career, is my own son, who spent 94 days in the neonatal intensive care unit. Those children teach us humility, laughter, joy for life. My grandson never complains. He never complained about being poked and prodded. He never complained about having to be fit for a helmet. He never complained about wearing that helmet to reshape his misshapen head. That little boy has a quality and a joy of life that inspires everyone who meets him. And we often look at him and think, what a wonderful old soul you are. How many of those babies, those children born, Nellie, do you feel are old, old souls? What I find intriguing about Easton is that he was conceived the very weekend that I met my biological family for the first time. I don't think that's a coincidence either. When I was a kid, I thought 60 was ancient. Now looking through the lens, life is so short. You're right. Amen, Meg. Meg and I, by the way, are going to do a class together on April 1st. It's about the mystics of old and what they have to teach us modern day mystics. I mean, I do think to myself, what if Teresa of Avila or Teresa Lisieux were born in the 1960s in San Francisco? Right? What if they were really flower children ahead of their time? Maybe they did reincarnate. You know? What would they have to teach us in the modern day? We're going to talk about that, me and Meg. And Meg is also a very, very humorous person. Yeah. In fact, this whole chat room is filled with really funny people. Hey, Holly. Finally able to get into the chat room. Yeah. Common sense, yeah. Boy, some people ain't got a lick of it, it seems. Sometimes it's just life taking us through the knothole of introspection, self-reflection. Yeah, a chat room of giggle makers, there's no doubt about that. And it's not to say that spirituality isn't serious business. I mean, if I'm teaching, I'm very responsible with what I'm teaching. I hope I'm very responsible and that I use integrity with what I'm teaching and to whom I'm teaching. I'm not saying that I think it's all, great laughs when we're talking about a very serious subject matter. But humor is a very high vibration. It's a very high vibration. And it can really illuminate a space that is filled with unwanted darkness. I'm not talking about the shadow or, those aspects of darkness, but places where evil dwells. The impermanence of life gives us an appreciation for light and dark, doesn't it? Of boundaries, healthy relationships. Common sense says that if you keep going back to the well of fill in the blank, you're going to continue drinking from that same well. Or eating from that same trough, whatever, what have you. If you keep going back, isn't that the one definition of insanity? Keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again. Sometimes we just have to figure things out for ourselves too. I think that's also part of the spirit of common sense. We didn't come here for everybody to figure stuff out for us. Sometimes we're supposed to figure it out for ourselves. And even in those times when we're figuring things out for ourselves, we can say, well, where is God now? Where are my guardian angels now? Why isn't the goddess helping me through this? What have I done? I think it's very Piscean. The old shame, blame, what have I done? Why is Beelzebub picking on me? We must have done something. I'm really happy that we're in the Aquarian age. I believe the Aquarian age is, going to be a much more balanced place. The Piscean age, there's a lot of blame and shame and self-flagellation and, physical, what do I want to say? The Piscean age, of course, has beautiful things. I'm not saying it was all a wash of, of ugly. But I am saying, that part of the Piscean age that we're coming out of is this, it contains the thought form of self-harm, self-punishment. I'm to blame. I'm bad. I'm inherently bad. Original sin and all that crap-a-diddle. I'm bad. I deserve it. I must punish myself. I'm a better person if I self-punish. And if everybody sees me self-punish, then I'm even a better person. Oh, goodness. Lord Almighty. Oh, I guess that's probably a whole other show. Del Marie says, I love to be humorous, even at my age. The child comes out as I realized my laughter and goofiness was suppressed for so many years during my boarding school years. Oh my goodness, yes, Del. Hey, Kelly Spencer. Well, there's another funny person. Kelly. As Elise says, man, Mom, she's one of the funniest people I know. Yep, Kelly's a very funny person. Great sense of humor. And yeah, Del, sometimes our sense of humor can be drilled out of us, slapped out of us, smacked out of us in so many ways that finding the humor, finding the lightness in human life can be a quest that some people, it takes them a long time to ever find it. Because perhaps they were punished as little people for no good reason of their own. The spirit of common sense, to me, says children are not born to be punished. I mean, don't get me wrong, kids need good boundaries. I do have the moniker mean mom for a good reason. My kids did have boundaries. And I kept those boundaries pretty firm. But I'm talking about, why are some children, they endure that. And sometimes a sense of humor is our way of coping, as Donna was saying. It's our way of coping with things, of moving through. And it's okay. Some people have nervous laughter. Some people laugh when they're healing. There is laughter yoga. Some people will begin a presentation. I've been known to do this. If I'm speaking at a conference, sometimes I will open up my conference lecture with a very funny anecdote. A few years back, I was giving lectures, and I opened it up with, Del Marie, you'll appreciate this, when I was first learning bits of the Lakota language, and I wasn't really very good in my pronunciation of some of the words, and it ended up in a very humorous situation for me, where in the NEP, I was asked to say a few words and to say them in the Lakota language. And what I thought I was saying is that, I'm praying for a strong heart. That's what I thought I was saying. I'm praying for a strong heart. That's not what I said. What I actually said was, I'm praying for a strong vagina. And as I was saying that, I was being so serious about my prayer. All of a sudden, I could hear Margie and Rosella laughing in the inipi, and they were just giggling. And so afterward, I said to Margie, Margie, how come you and Rosella were laughing so hard at me? And she said, because of what you prayed for. I said, well, I was praying for a strong heart. She said, that's not what you prayed for. I said, oh my God, what did I pray for? She said, you prayed to have a strong vagina. And then everybody bursted out laughing. Well, I shared that at the beginning of one of my lectures. I remember, oh my goodness, Salvatore Sapienza. He's the minister down at the UCC church in Douglas. Afterwards, he walked up to me and he said, I didn't realize you were such a funny person. That was a great story you told. And I said, well, sometimes I like to open up a conference lecture with laughter because it changes the dynamic of the entire auditorium. And it also, when I talk about the fact that I was praying what I thought was for a strong heart, but in actuality was praying for a strong vagina, it also proves that I'm really human. And that I can laugh at myself, just like everybody else in that whole NEP did. Of course, the men, they were all like, oh, Margie, you tell her. And she did. Margie laughed. Oh, Denise. So there. Spirit knew what you needed, even if you didn't. Yeah. That's right. You always have to laugh at yourself. Yeah. There's a lot of healing that comes from just admitting we're human. A lot of times I will say I am not perfect. And I had somebody say to me, I kid you not, and obviously it sticks with me because I'm still talking about it. She said to me, every time I hear somebody say, I'm not perfect, I want to know what it is that they're really talking about, because clearly they've done something really awful in their lives that they will point out that they are not perfect. And I looked at this person and I said, maybe they're just admitting that they're human and that they make mistakes. Not that they've got a closet full of skeletons with all sorts of labels of, miscreant evil doings. Maybe they're just saying, I admit it, I am not perfect. Oh no, whenever I hear that, she said, I want to know what's really in the closet. Why do they have to say that? Oy vey, sometimes a cow is just a cow. Not everything has, a demonic attachment to it. Oh, I woke up and my stomach hurts today. I know somebody is psychically attacking me because I have a stomach ache today. You ever know those people? Right? Any little thing goes wrong, they're being psychically attacked. I know. Somebody's after me today. My left eye keeps twitching. I can't get it under control. I know I'm being attacked. Well, is it your right eye or is it your left eye? Are they attacking the right side of your being? The male side or the left side? Which is the female? Which is it? Which of your eyeballs is twitching? Oh, common sense. We're all in this together, everybody. Next month on Terry Ruel's show, she's going to do her show about cults and conspiracies. Cults and conspiracies. That ought to be good from the point of view of a psychotherapist. And plus, Terry is about as down to earth, common sense, yet spiritual. I love Terry Ruel. Cults and conspiracies are not really her gig, but she's studying it in depth so that we can talk about it on her show next month. Boy, the subject of conspiracies, that's a big one lately, isn't it? Cults and conspiracies. I'm looking forward to that show. Boy, talk about lack of common sense. Jeez. I always say to Todd, good Lord, I hear some of this stuff that people say, and I will say to Todd, good God Almighty, I see dead people, and I don't believe a word of what they're saying. And I see dead people, and I've got more common sense, and I'm more normal than, I know that's really judgy, everybody, but I hear stuff and I think, I thought it was kind of an eyebrow raiser that I talk to dead people, that I see spirit. I thought that was an eyebrow raiser. Jupiter, some of the stuff that I see and hear anymore, it raises my eyebrows. These days, I'm just kind of common fodder. I'm in a really great company of other people who can see spirit and talk to spirit and all that kind of thing, right? Modern day mystics, seers and sensitives. As I will say to Kelly, once again, I feel so normal compared to some of the stuff I hear. And people really believe that stuff. And I try not to be too judgy because, I don't want, you know what I'm saying. But, wow. Common sense. Whew. Kelly's laughing. Sometimes I'll say to her, I think that I'm like one of the most normal people I know. And good Lord. I don't know. Everything in balance, right? Everything in balance. Got any eye drops? Exactly, Nellie. Too much pizza the night before? It's called psychic heartburn attack. Yeah. Do you know people like... I do know people like that. I had a dream. Okay. And I'm not saying that those things don't happen. Of course they do. We all know. We've been there. I have had some things happen in my life that are normal for me and would not necessarily be normal for any other human being, and I get that. And Todd has been witness to things that, up until he was married to me, he probably would not have believed can actually happen. The manifestations of spirit and the way that they happen here in the household and what he's been witness to. And he will say to me, if I hadn't seen that or heard that, I wouldn't have ever believed it. I would not have ever. So the reason I bring that up is there are degrees also of what is commonsensical in one person's house is not going to be commonsensical in another person's house. Here in this house, the manifestation or spiritual happenings, it's commonplace here. It isn't necessarily going to be commonplace. I just saw my neighbor Dave coming down the hill in his part of the forest. And, neighbor David is a lovely man. He's a Baptist minister. He has a couple of churches and congregations. And so maybe the manifestation of spirit in his house and the manifestation of spirits and spiritual phenomena in my house, maybe it's different. So what's common and sensical to David in his house and in his two beautiful churches is maybe very different than what is common sense and common for me in my home and in my NEP. So there are degrees, but there are basic tenets of common sense in humanity. If you drink too many beers, you're going to get drunk, and if you drink them for too long, you're probably going to have liver problems and that kind of common sense stuff. what is common sense to me, that there is spirit in everything. To me, that is common sense. It's what I grew up with. Even the rocks have a spirit. If everything was created by the Creator, then it has a spirit. I grew up with that. But I also grew up with that if the Sarge said be ready by 0700, the Sarge meant 0700 and not 0705. And in other people's households, being 5 minutes late is not a big deal. But common in my household was the bus left the station at 0700, not 0705. Kelly, you know what I'm talking about because you grew up with me. So there are degrees of common sense, spiritual common sense, and the spirit of common sense based, in individual homes and circumstances. And I think it's good to recognize that. I think the common denominator of common sense and the spirit of common sense, again, is the fact that we are all souls. As Ram Dass says, Baba Ram Dass says, we are all souls just walking each other home. And this lifetime is short. And it's a human lifetime. We are spiritual beings having a human lifetime. And as the elder said, if we wanted to be so holy, we should have just stayed in spirit. It's good to be in balance, but it's good to experience being human. And with that comes some high highs, some low lows, some hairpin curves. It comes with passion and joy and ecstatic laughter. It comes with grief. It comes with the dark night. It comes with friendships. It comes with betrayals. It comes with great love and with great loss. And not because we've done something wrong, and not because of something we should be ashamed of, not because we're being punished by an old man floating around on a cloud with lightning bolts coming out of his fingertips. Thank you, Michelangelo. But because we're having a human experience. Isn't that marvelous? That gets my blood going. I love that. And the wheel is the wheel. What we put forth does come back to visit us. It does matter what we say and what we do. The threefold law, the wheel of fortune, those all apply. What we put out into the world, as Harvey Gainey once said to me in 2006, you cannot outgive God. And that's why Harvey Gainey is one of the most successful men in Michigan, I believe. Denise, if I give you a semi-truck and I give you a semi-driver, you can't outgive God, and I will guarantee you that that semi-trailer will be full before you leave for the reservation, because you cannot outgive God. And he was right. We had, within a week and a half, that entire semi was full. Right to the very last ounce of space that semi had to offer us. And then some. And I love that bit of common sense. You cannot outgive God, Goddess. You cannot outgive. Because what you give comes back. Be careful of what you give, right? Be mindful I should say. Consciously aware and awake of what you give. And be consciously awake and aware when it returns to you. All you have to do is say thank you. With that, everybody, thank you for joining me this morning. Thank you for being you. Thank you for shining your light the way that you do. And maybe, just maybe, for any of you that are out there listening, if you thought that you're going through something right now because you're being punished, because you deserve it, I'm going to ask you to maybe rethink that. And just pause it for a moment that maybe this human life is so multifaceted and yet short. It's one of the greatest gifts our soul, I believe, has ever been given and will ever be given. With that, everybody, get out there and shine your lights and have a beautiful day. And don't forget to laugh. It's good for your soul. Blessings be.